Discarded a millionaire's shocking humiliation of an employee revealing a life-changing truth. The sun shone brightly over the quaint Midwest town, casting a golden hue on the annual harvest festival. Families laughed, children chased each other, and the smell of fresh pies wafted through the air. Among the bustling crowd stood Mike, a hard-working diner employee, his heart heavy with the weight of economic struggle. At 38, he was more than just a worker. He was a devoted father, a veteran, and the backbone of his family. Despite the warm day, a chill ran through him every time he caught sight of Ray, the millionaire diner owner, who seemed to thrive only on wealth and arrogance. Today was supposed to be a celebration, to show off local produce and bring joy. The diner had organized a pie-eating contest, and while Mike hoped this might help the diner win patrons, he braced himself for the inevitable belittling he would face from Ray. Just as he was serving up slices, an accidental mishap, a slice that landed wrong, set off a chain reaction. "You call that a serving? Get it together, Mike," Ray yelled, his voice booming, shattering the joyous atmosphere. The laughter stopped, replaced by shocked gasps as Mike stood there, red-faced and humiliated. How could he ever rise against such an egotistical presence? As he drove home that evening, the weight of the town's eyes felt heavier than lead. After a long shift, he looked into his children's eager eyes. "Did you win, Dad?" they chirped, innocent hope lighting up their faces. That question ignited a fire within him. "It doesn't matter if I won," Mike replied, fighting back tears. "What matters is that I keep fighting for you." This moment changed him. He understood he had to stand up, not just for himself, but for every worker struggling under the sparkly facade of wealth. The next day, buoyed by the supportive murmurs of his coworkers, Mike gathered a group to brainstorm. They wanted to confront Ray and call out the social divide in their community. They organized a local gathering, one that would showcase their hard work, their hustle, and the spirit of togetherness. But as whispers of Mike's humiliation spread, an old friend, now an investigative journalist, returned to town. Hearing the tale, he dug deeper into Ray's empire, unveiling unethical practices that sent shockwaves through their close-knit community. "Have you heard?" the townsfolk murmured. Exposing Ray's exploitation ignited a firestorm of public outrage. People rallied behind Mike, a wave of support that even Ray couldn't ignore. At the town hall meeting, as Mike stood up, his heart raced. "I'm not here to tear anyone down," he said, voice steady yet powerful. "But worth isn't measured in riches. It's in how we treat each other." His words struck a chord. The crowd leaned in, emotions swelling. But just as hope began to build, Ray jumped in, rage etched on his face. "You think they care about your struggles? You're just a worker." The crowd gasped, tensions mounting. This clash was the moment everything changed. With the town divided, Mike's journey for dignity was just beginning. Would he reclaim his respect and strive for a brighter future for his children? The air crackled with anticipation as the battle for recognition loomed ever closer. As the tension in the room thickened, Mike felt the weight of every eye on him. He could hear his heartbeat thundering in his ears, drowning out any lingering doubts. "You've got to be kidding me," he thought as he stared at Ray, whose face had morphed from anger to disbelief. Mike's fists clenched. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was for the silent workers, the underdogs who felt the oppressive shadow of success looming over them. "Everyone deserves respect," Mike found his voice. "You taught me how to serve and treat customers right. Why can't that extend to your employees?" The crowd shifted, murmurs of agreement rippling through. He had struck a chord, but Ray remained defiant, his arrogance unwavering. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mike," Ray warned, but something in his tone hinted at uncertainty. The invincible millionaire was starting to lose his grip, and it fueled Mike's passion. With a deep breath, Mike continued. "I didn't wake up today wanting to start a battle. I came here hoping to unite us, to show that we can stand together." His gaze swept over familiar faces. The waitress who often covered his shifts, the cook who shared stories of home, and the belligerent customer who once preferred to shout over a meal rather than enjoy it. A family, fragmented but now awakened. As he spoke, something incredible began to happen. Other workers from the diner, inspired by Mike's bravery, stood up one by one. "We're tired of being invisible. We matter," shouted a voice from the back. The crowd erupted into applause. Each worker's story, their struggles, Their dignity. It was a chorus of raw, unfiltered emotion that pierced the air. Ray's face twisted into shock as he realized he had underestimated the heart of his employees. He stumbled backward, almost losing his composure. It was as if each word Mike spoke chipped away at the facade Ray had so carefully constructed. Finally, the mayor called for order, his voice breaking through the chaos and drawing everyone's attention back to the stage. "We can resolve this," he stated, "but only if we are willing to listen and truly work together." The mood shifted from confrontational to hopeful. Those who felt voiceless were starting to believe they could reclaim their power. But just as the energy in the room peaked, Mike noticed someone in the back of the hall. A tall man with graying hair, wearing a suit that seemed to know better days. He stood quietly watching. As Mike caught his eye, a wave of recognition washed over him. "Mr. Hargrove?" Mike asked, his heart pounding again. This was Ray's investor, a man rumored to control more than the diner. "What do you want?" "I want to help," Mr. Hargrove said, stepping forward, his voice steady. "But this requires both sides to admit their faults, starting with Ray." Gasps erupted again, and Mike felt a pang of hope, mixed with excitement and trepidation. Was this the turning point they needed? Just as Mike opened his mouth to respond, Ray exploded. "You don't know what you're talking about, Hargrove." The tension returned, eclipsing the hope. Would they truly find a resolution? Or was this just another battle? In that moment, Mike realized the fight was far from over. Would they unite for change? Or would personal pride destroy what they were trying to build? As all eyes turned back to him, a sense of responsibility washed over Mike. With a renewed resolve, he took a step forward. "Together we can make a difference. But we must first face the truth." The room held its breath, waiting for the next move in this precarious dance of power and humanity. As silence settled, Mike's heart raced, the stakes higher than ever. How far would he really go for justice? The silence in the room felt like a live wire, sharp and electric. Mike could sense the shift in the air, the anticipation hanging heavier than ever. He took a deep breath, determined to channel the weight of the moment into words that could cut through the unease. "Ray, this isn't just about you or me," he began again, his voice steadying with resolve. "It's about the people who stand behind us. Every single one of them has a story, a struggle, and they deserve to be heard." The murmurs grew louder, like the rustling of leaves shaken by a gentle breeze. He locked eyes with the waitress, who flashed him a quick nod of support. The cook stood with his arms crossed, his brow furrowed but his stance resolute. And then there was the belligerent customer, now reflecting the spirit of camaraderie. They were all in this together. Ray's face twisted in anger once more, the confidence beginning to wane beneath the weight of collective defiance. He was losing control, and it showed. "You think this is some kind of game?" He spat, the venom in his words turning the atmosphere sour. But Mike stood firm. "No, Ray. It's a chance for change. We can make this diner more than just a place to eat. We can create a community." He gestured around the room as he spoke, emphasizing the faces that had become his family over the years. "We can fight for fairness, for respect, for dignity. Not just for us, but for every worker struggling in shadows." Mr. Hargrove shifted forward, a glimmer of interest sparking in his eye. "You have to see the writing on the wall, Ray. Everything changes. This can be an opportunity to rebuild, to create something sustainable." His gaze remained steady, grounded by a surprising candor. The crowd began to nod in agreement, tentative but growing in certainty. Voices rose in support of Mike's words. "Yeah, let us do it," shouted someone at the back, prompting waves of enthusiasm from others in the room. Hope was beginning to permeate the atmosphere, spreading like wildfire. Ray's bravado was fading fast. In the face of unified voices, he appeared smaller, more vulnerable. "And what if I don't want to change?" he replied, but it was a half-hearted challenge. "It's not just about you, Ray," Mike replied gently, feeling the gravity of the moment. "You're not only affecting your career, but you're also shaping the lives of all of us. This isn't just about business profits. It's personal." A thick silence fell again, but this time it was soaked in uncertainty for Ray. Gazing around, Mike saw the growing unity, the way everyone was leaning in, hungry for change. His heart swelled with emotion. This wasn't just a battle, it was a movement. "Ray, you have a choice," Mike said, his tone shifting to something softer yet firm. You can choose to carry on as you have, or you can choose to elevate all of us. And let us be honest, when did you last feel fulfilled by your success? The room shifted again, as if everyone collectively held their breath. Ray hesitated, his lips thinning. And if I fail to do what you want, then we will show you what true power looks like when united, Mike replied, a smirk creeping on his face, hinting at the strength of their collective resolve. That moment, Mike knew they were teetering on the edge of something transformative. The room vibrated with possibility, a sense of victory hanging in the balance. Robin from the kitchen took a step forward, voice trembling but fierce. We're done with being silenced. Let us start with a simple thing. We want fair pay. The crowd erupted into raucous approval. A symphony of voices united in demand, a heartbeat pulsing with purpose. Ray's expression shifted, confusion intermingling with fear. He looked from Mike to Mr. Hargrove, surrendering, if only for a moment, to the weight of the collective determination. But just as hope blossomed, Mike caught sight of an unfurling storm brewing behind Ray's eyes, lurking beneath a facade that was about to crack. Would that storm be too powerful for their newfound hope? Or would it prompt a breakthrough? As anticipation hung thick once more, Mike gripped the moment, ready for whatever lay ahead, prepared for the fight of their lives. What about Ray? Would he finally see the truth behind his own shortcomings? Ray's eyes darted from one face to another, confusion etched across his features. The crowd's roaring approval of Robin's call to action echoed in his ears. It was a cacophony of voices demanding change, but change brought unease. What did it mean for him, his diner, and everything he'd built? He clenched his fists, the joints popping like the tension crackling around them. What do you think this will achieve? He shot back, though the fire behind his words flickered. You seriously think demanding fair pay is just going to magically fix everything? There are bills to pay, supplies to buy. My business, it can't just change overnight. That spark of defiance was still there, but it was dwindling. The weight of expectation bore down on him. The army of hopeful faces was a powerful force. Mike seized the moment, stepping closer, his voice calm yet charged, a grounding anchor in a storm. It's a start, Ray. Nothing changes if we don't take the first step. If you're worried about bills, let us talk about how we can create sustainable changes right here. Together. You know, this place deserves better than being just a paycheck. Ray's brow furrowed as doubt crossed his mind. He glanced at the diner, its once gleaming tables and worn menus that spoke of countless meals shared. There had been joy here, laughter. It wasn't just a business to him. It was a lifetime, and yet, in this moment, he felt as if he was standing on a cliff, the ground trembling beneath his feet. The waitress chimed in, her voice trembling but resolute. Ray, we don't want to tear you down. We just want to build something better for all of us. Her fingers shook slightly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and Mike caught a flash of hopeful determination in her gaze. Silence swept through the crowd as they waited for Ray's answer. The seconds stretched on like an eternity, and Mike could feel every heartbeat around him, a collective pulse of anticipation. Look, Ray began, voice low and uncertain. I never thought of it that way. I always focused on what needed to get done. What kept the lights on. The tremor of uncertainty was palpable, but so too was a growing realization. The fragile flicker of hope ignited into a flame. Maybe I haven't been listening, he admitted, his bravado cracking. I see it now, you all are here fighting for something real. Something that matters. Together we can forge a new path, Ray, Mike urged, sensing the shift from declaration to connection. You can lead this. We can be more than just a diner. We can inspire a movement. Ray's eyes began to glisten, vulnerable and raw. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. But what if I screw it up? It was a soft admission, a crack in his hardened exterior. The risk of failing is always there. But it's worth it when the stakes are this high, Mike answered, the emotion flooding his voice. We're all in this together, and that makes us stronger, Ray. A glimmer of truth pierced through Ray's fear, and the people behind him murmured encouragement. All right, he said slowly, nodding as if embracing a new era. Let us talk about what that looks like. Fair pay, better shifts, let us do this together. The room erupted once more, a chorus of cheers igniting a sense of rebirth. Hope hung in the air, sweet and heady, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Mike felt alive with the power of transformation. He had never believed change could happen so swiftly. But in the background of joyous laughter and dreams unfolding, a sharp sound sliced through the elation, a door slamming followed by frantic footsteps. The cook's face turned pale, his eyes wide. "Ray, what if the real threat doesn't come from inside?" he stammered, scanning the diner as shadows loomed ominously outside. The crowd fell silent again, the tension shifting uncomfortably. Who or what was out there waiting to pounce? Mike felt the hair on his arms rise. What challenge would emerge from the shadows? The murmurs of the crowd faded, replaced by a heavy stillness that seemed to crawl over everyone. Eyes turned to Ray, then to the door, where shadows danced menacingly against the glass. The urgency of the moment hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Mike could feel his heart race. "Ray," the cook whispered again, trying to keep his voice steady. "We can't just ignore it." Ray took a deep breath, trying to hold on to the flicker of hope that had just ignited moments before. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer to the door, peering out into the growing darkness. Unease settled deeper in the pit of Mike's stomach. "It's what we were talking about, man. Change isn't just about the diner. It's about pushing against everything coming at us outside. This isn't just about fair pay. It's about standing for ourselves, against anything that tries to tear us down." Just then, the first figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, dressed in a suit that didn't quite fit the setting. As he strode closer, recognition flickered in Ray's eyes. It was Greg, the diner's landlord. The man always carried an air of self-importance, as if the world should bend at his feet. "What the hell is he doing here?" Ray muttered under his breath, straightening his posture. Greg's gaze swept over the crowd, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Good evening, everyone. I couldn't help but notice there's quite a party happening in my establishment," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. The approval the crowd had felt only moments ago evaporated like mist in sunlight. "Ray, can you explain why there's an assembly of disgruntled employees demanding changes to their wages? Didn't we have an agreement?" The crowd tensed, faces shifting to mix of defiance and fear. There it was, the familiar battle cry of the underdog against the privileged, the fingers being held against the pulse of solid rock. Ray could feel the warmth of anger rise in him, mingling with courage. "We're not unhappy," he declared, finding strength amidst the cacophony. "We're fighting for what we deserve. Things have to change around here. You've been getting your dues without considering us, Greg." At that, Greg's grin faltered, replaced by something much darker. "Change? Oh, you think you can just shout for it and everything's fine? I hold the cards here. With the swipe of my pen I can toss you all out." Uncertainty crackled like a wire about to snap. Gasps echoed through the diner as the crowd watched the confrontation unfold. The excitement that had sparked moments ago now felt like a shaky house of cards, ready to tumble. But in the face of Greg's intimidation, Ray stepped forward, his voice rising above the murmurs. "You might think you control our livelihoods, but we've come together for something greater. You can't intimidate us anymore." The cheers that followed emboldened him, but the fear lingered. Mike caught Ray's eye, an unspoken bond holding them steady. They were on the brink. Every soul in this diner was tethered to a common dream, dignity and respect. But outside, more figures appeared, their silhouettes dark against the dwindling daylight. Were they friends or foes? What would Greg's next move be? Ray glanced back at Greg, swallowing hard, determination welling up once more. "We're ready to fight for what's right, no matter the cost," he stated, pushing through the doubt. Greg opened his mouth, but before he could respond, another loud bang echoed from outside, the unmistakable sound of a breaking window. Heart skipped a beat. "What now?" Mike breathed, fear lacing his voice. The crowd stood frozen, a wave of collective anxiety washing over them. Ray scanned the diner, a question nagging at him. What was about to collapse first, his business or their newfound unity? As the figures drew nearer, encroaching like shadows from a nightmare, the moment of truth loomed ahead. Who would stand tall and who would buckle under pressure? Would it be the dawn of a new fight or the avalanche of fear? The night air thickened with tension, every heartbeat echoing like a drumroll as Ray stood his ground. He felt the weight of his friends behind him, yet their faces told a different story, a mix of fear and courage that danced together in the dim hallway of the diner. Outside, the shadows loomed larger, creeping forward like smoke. One figure stepped into view, face illuminated by the light from within. It was a familiar face, Megan. the waitress who had been fighting for her son's healthcare premiums. But tonight, her confidence seemed shaken, her eyes darting between the approaching threat and the safety of the diner's walls. "Ray, we can't face them alone," she started, desperation squeezing her voice. "They're not alone." Mike stepped up, more resolved than ever. "This is our home. We've faced worse than them." A chorus of murmurs rose from the crowd, voices wrapping around each other, building a wall of solidarity. Each voice reminded Ray why they had gathered, igniting that small flicker from before into a roaring fire within him. "We're not backing down. I won't let this dying dream go easily. Suit yourself." Greg barked with a contemptuous laugh. "But it won't take much for me to shove each and every one of you out on the street." Just as the shadows on the sidewalk shifted, another window shattered. This time the sound rang as a metallic clang, jolting the diner like a warning shot. Panic flashed in Megan's eyes, her bravado wavered. The atmosphere crackled as real fear swept through the crowd, tight and unforgiving. Ray turned to look at the gathering darkness outside. "We stand together or we stand apart. This is our diner, our lives. It's about more than just paychecks. If they want to take us down, they'd better come prepared." His voice was steady, a lighthouse amidst the chaos. With those words, the crowd seemed to find its footing again. Courage surged. A few members reached for each other's hands, interlocking fingers as if to form an unbreakable chain. The anxiety morphed into resolve, blossoming into a collective strength they never knew they had. From the rear, a voice caught the crowd's attention. A man with a beard and an apron stepped forward. "I've seen this place thrive when we worked together. Remember our late nights, pouring coffee and saving tips? We've built this place, it's ours." The crowd erupted into chants of agreement, fists raised towards Greg. Each shout echoed against the metal walls, creating a crescendo that filled every corner of the diner, shaking off the weight of intimidation. But just as hope began to thread through their hearts, the shadows lurched with sudden movement. The figures outside were no longer just silhouettes. They were advancing, faces shrouded in aggressive intent. Some held objects, glinting menacingly under the diner's fluorescent lights. Ray could see their faces, sneers stretched across their lips. "We might be standing with words now," Ray murmured, his heartbeat resonating in his chest. "But what happens when they come through that door?" "Let them try," Mike answered him, his hand trembling from adrenaline. "We're here. We got each other's backs." As the door rattled ominously, every pair of eyes within the diner was locked on it. Momentarily, the world fell silent. The tension was unbearable, building to a point of explosion. Then, in that stillness, one question rang clear: what would happen when the door burst open? The weight of uncertainty loomed as the diner's strength was tested. Would they rise as one united front, or would division strike before they could even hope to face the storm? And there, at that defining moment, Ray knew it was only the beginning of a fight that would change everything. The door rattled hard, slamming against the bar. The wood creaked under the pressure as it swung open. A rush of cold air flooded the diner, bringing with it a taste of dread that hit like a punch. The figures poured in, a dark wave crashing against the defiance standing within. Greg, face twisted with contempt, shoved his way through. "Surprise, surprise. You thought you could withstand us?" He sneered, the arrogance dripping from his voice. Behind him, a few of his friends brandished makeshift weapons, ready to take control. Ray stepped forward, heart hammering as he faced the storm. The lights flickered, illuminating anger and desperation around them. "This isn't just a diner, it's our sanctuary. You'll have to come through us." His voice rang clear, echoing against the chaos. A hopeful light sparked in the eyes of his friends, and he could feel the strength in their shared defiance. Megan found her voice and stepped beside him. "We're not afraid of bullies. You can't silence us." The corners of the diner, usually so familiar and comforting, felt charged with energy, a place where dreams were woven into midnight conversations. Tonight they stood not just as customers or workers but as a united front, a family of misfits determined to protect what they built together. "Family," Greg laughed, a short, cruel sound that cracked through the air. "You think this is some sort of family reunion? You are nothing without me." His words hit hard, but Ray wouldn't let anger devour him. "We are everything without you. We're our own family, built on trust and friendship. You're just trying to break us down because you're scared." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Ray's heart surged as he saw faces light up, fighting against darkness. Each heartbeat resonated with the air, uniting them. Greg's friends advanced a step, eyes narrowed. Enough talk. You want a fight? We'll give it to you. Each word dripped with venom, intentions clear in the charged silence. Ray stepped back slightly, allowing others to close in beside him. This was their moment. You can throw punches all day, but you'll see our spirit can't be bruised. This diner holds more than coffee and food. It holds our lives, our shared hopes. Greg's expression twisted into a mask of lurid frustration, then swiftly morphed into something close to panic. You think you're a hero? You're nothing. Just a group of losers clinging to a dying dream. The crowd stirred again. Though fear still loomed, the determination hung in the air like fire smoke. It was tangible. And yet here we stand, Mike shouted, the words flying like arrows into the tension. Where are you, if not hiding behind insults? In that moment, Reyes' resolve deepened. They weren't just here to defend a diner. They were there as a testament to everything they fought for. Love and hope became their shields, arming them against the hate that threatened them, and Ray understood the power of belonging, of standing together against the tide. But as Greg's men tensed, ready to unleash chaos, a loud crash echoed outside the diner. Heads turned, anticipation mingling with anxiety. What else awaited them? What were they really ready to face? Ray caught Megan's eye. Whatever happens, we won. Tea break. Together. She yelled, and the chorus of voices surged. That sound bounced off the walls. A song of unity against the darkness. Just then, another figure appeared outside the shimmer of authority. The flashing lights of a police car cut through the night. Relief washed over Ray, but an unsettling thought crept in. Would the arrival of help turn the tide? Or would it escalate the violence? As the door trembled with potential confrontation, Ray wondered what new storm awaited them. Would their stand find justice or only fuel the flames of conflict? As the night unfolded, the question loomed large: where would their fight lead them? The door swung wide, its hinges protesting against the sudden weight of uncertainty. The police car's lights flashed like a heartbeat in the chaos, red and blue dancing through the diner, casting unsettling shadows on the patrons' faces. Ray's heart raced as a heavy-set officer stepped into the diner, his stance commanding but tinged with confusion. Everyone stay calm, the officer called over the rumble of nervous chatter. His eyes swept over the scene, taking in Greg and his friends, who were poised for a fight. Ray seized this moment, his voice rising above the tension. We just want to keep our homes safe. They don't belong here. He gestured toward Greg, but his words faltered in the presence of authority. The officer glanced at Greg, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. You again? What is this, another intimidation stunt? It's not intimidation, Greg retorted, but there was a slight quaver in his voice. This isn't over. You don't know what you're standing in. He stepped forward, chest puffed out. Megan jumped in behind Ray. This is our life. We've worked hard for this place. Her words felt like a lifeline, pulling the crowd together. The officer looked between the two groups, uncertainty written on his brow as he weighed the possibility of a brewing storm against the weight of the law. I need everyone to take a step back. Let us sort this out the right way. Ray could feel the tension snapping, like a tight rubber band ready to break. He glanced around the diner at the faces he'd come to love. They weren't alone, they were a collective force. But the anger still simmered, and he knew that keeping the peace would require more than words. A young woman in the back spoke up, her voice trembling. We don't want violence. We want to keep our space. Greg laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're delusional. You're just prolonging your misery. He aimed his glare at the officer, clearly trying to assert dominance. What are you going to do about it? Protect these fools? Ray's heart sank as the officer took a steady breath. I can arrest anyone who breaks the law. But if we can handle this peacefully, his eyes turned soft, inviting them to share their story. A hush fell, a brief stillness hovering over them. The crowd leaned in, awaiting Reyes' words. This was it. He took a breath, drawing from the courage he saw in Megan's eyes. This isn't just about pride or a diner. It's about the community. We are family here, he declared, his passion breaking free from fear. Greg might think he can intimidate us, but we've built something more than he'll ever understand. The officer nodded thoughtfully while Greg fumed, rage bubbling beneath his composure. This isn't family. It's a joke. Ray tightened his fists, the words swirling in his head. You may have tried to break us apart, but you can't extinguish our light. We're not giving up. The officer turned back to Ray, a measure of respect in his gaze. I hear you. I really do. This isn't the way to resolve things. We just need to find common ground. But Greg wasn't willing to back down. He motioned his friends to advance. Let us take this outside then. Megan stepped forward again, blocking the way. No. We stand together, we don't run. The fire in her eyes captivated everyone. The crowd rallying behind her. Tension crackled in the air. They were on the edge of something monumental. But just as the confrontation reached its peak, a shout erupted from the entrance. Stop right there. Everyone turned to see a figure emerge, an elderly woman, her presence dominating despite her frail form. Her eyes scanned the room, settling on Greg as she declared, You have no claim here. This diner belongs to my family. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that shifted the atmosphere. Who was she? What connection did she have to their sanctuary? Ray felt a mixture of fear and excitement whirl within him. Could she hold the key to their fight for what they loved? As the revelation hung in the air, Ray knew they were in for an unexpected twist. What other secrets lay buried beneath the surface? The elderly woman took a step forward, her frail hands raised gently as if to calm the storm brewing in the diner. There was something in her stance that quieted the chaos, a power that came not from size but from years of experience. Margaret! Megan gasped, recognizing the woman as the diner's former owner. Is that you? Yes, dear, she said, her voice steady. I returned when I heard about the trouble, and I see it hasn't improved. Her gaze hardened on Greg, who shifted uncomfortably under her piercing stare. What do you think you can do? Greg scoffed. This is just a ploy. Even if you once owned it, you don't have any claim now. Ray could see the anger in her eyes but also something deeper, hurt and determination. You don't know the half of it, boy, she replied, her voice breezing with a calm that was unsettling for Greg. This diner is more than just bricks and food. It's about the lives it touches, the memories made here. She motioned toward Ray and the crowd. These people breathe life into this place every single day. It's their heart now. The officer raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. Mrs. Clark, do you have any documents to back this up? Margaret nodded slowly. Of course. I retained ownership even when I stepped back. I thought it best for the community to run it, to grow. She turned to Ray, her eyes softening. But it was always mine to protect. Ray felt tears welling in his eyes. Margaret had always been a ghost around the edges of this diner. Her legacy loomed large, and he thought he had lost it forever. Then we can't let it go to Greg, he said, adrenaline surging through him. Greg? Margaret turned her focus back to him, the temperature dropping in the room. You think you can bully your way into a community that has stood together for years? You don't know the power of unity. The tension hung thick like smoke, palpable and electric. For a brief moment Greg faltered, uncertainty flickering across his face. Then, like a balloon that had lost all its air, he deflated. This is ridiculous, he muttered. You're all a bunch of losers. You don't deserve this place. Megan stepped closer to Ray, her hand brushing against his. You don't realize what we built. We're not going anywhere. Margaret smiled warmly. And together, none of you have to face this alone. Her words wrapped around the community like a blanket, the warmth reaching the furthest corners of the diner. The officer, seeing the shift in the room, put a hand on his belt, ensuring everyone knew he was there to protect. It seems we have some next steps to figure out. Everyone take a deep breath. We'll figure out where the law stands in all of this. But just as hope started to lift spirits, Greg finally snapped. You think you're safe? You think this ends here? I'll find a way to take this place from you, just watch. His voice was a low growl, filled with venom. Ray's heart raced again, anger flaring up. Margaret's presence had created a moment of solidarity, but Greg's threat shattered it. Would they have to face him again? We'll stand together, Ray said firmly, fighting through the doubt that crept back in. Margaret's flicker of hope ignited his resolve. You don't scare us. As the crowd rallied, raising their voices in agreement, Ray realized they had one more layer of protection. They had each other. The fight for the diner wasn't over, it had just begun. And with Margaret back, new alliances were forming. But what kind of battle lay ahead? Would they rally against Greg's threats? Or would he succeed in tearing them down? The stakes had grown higher, and so had the tension in the room. The air in the diner was electrifying, thick with a mix of defiance and determination. Ray felt the strength of the community surrounding him, their unity now a shield against all the uncertainty that loomed around them. Margaret stood confidently at the forefront, her presence transforming the atmosphere from chaotic hostility to focused hope. "Together we've built a legacy here," she proclaimed, her voice cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. "And together we will ensure it continues. We've turned this diner into a home for everyone. You may think you can bully us, Greg, but your threats are nothing against our spirit." The crowd erupted into applause, cheers echoing off the walls, emboldened by each word that fell from her lips. There was a solidarity now, a palpable sense of belonging that filled the air. They weren't just employees fighting for wages. They were a family standing up for their home. Greg's face twisted in anger, the bravado slipping away. "You think this is over?" He shot back, his voice losing its edge, revealing the crack in his armor. "You'll regret this, I promise you." But beneath his bluster, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. Mike stepped forward, heart pounding but resolve shining in his face. "You've underestimated every one of us, Greg. We're not going to let you tear apart what we've built together. You might think you can intimidate us, but intimidation falters where strength unites." The baritone of his voice resonated with a truth so sincere that even doubt seemed to flicker. Eyes turned back to Ray, waiting for him to lead. He could feel their hope, their fear, their collective heartbeat, a rhythm that pushed him to rise to the occasion. With his heart pounding in time with the murmurs, Ray took another step forward. "Margaret's right. This diner is about more than just food. It's about the lives we've built here. We've shared laughter, tears, and even dreams. What you see as a paycheck is our lifeline." The room erupted once more. Fists raised, voices chanting in unison. At that moment, the police officer stepped forward, his presence grounding. He glanced at the growing tension in the room, then back to Greg, resolute. "Listen, it's clear that tensions are running high and emotions are even higher. How about instead of making threats, we figure this out like adults? I suggest we hold a meeting?" Greg scoffed. "Why would I negotiate with these losers?" Ray didn't flinch. "Because maintaining the peace is in your best interest. You're not just fighting against us. You're fighting against everyone who believes in this community. The more you push, the stronger we become." The faces of the crowd cast golden reflections of hope, as if lit up by Ray's words. The officer nodded, backing Ray's assertion. "Let us sort this out properly. Every voice matters, including yours, Greg. But threats won't resolve anything here." In that charged moment, the realization settled. Their unity was a force that could not be broken easily. Just as silence threatened to take over again, Margaret turned to address the crowd. "Let us stand our ground. This diner doesn't belong to fear or intimidation. It belongs to the heart, the love, and the community we've built together." The cheers rang out, louder than thunder, an anthem of their combined spirit reverberating through the diner. Ray felt a deep sense of pride swell within him. They were no longer individually fragmented but a vibrant tapestry woven through shared dreams and relentless hope. Making a choice in that instant, Ray dared to dream out loud. "Let us create a fair system, but it starts with us. We should guide our future. Not a landlord who's never even tasted our coffee." The room echoed with fervor as the realization took hold that they had the power to reshape their lives. Just then, a hand shot up in the back, revealing an older gentleman. "I've lived through change and I'm here to help too. Let us establish what this diner was meant to be, a haven for everyone, where we are heard and valued." As he spoke, Margaret smiled brightly. Visions of the diner's past illuminating her face. "You see? We're not alone. We're standing on the shoulders of everyone who walked through these doors before. We honor their legacy by protecting this place." Greg's bravado crumbled further. His retorts fell flat against the unity climbing higher. "This isn't over," he muttered, frustration lacing his voice. But it was clear to everyone that the tide had turned. Standing together, the unlikely band of workers had transformed their fear into a powerful movement. Ray turned to the officer. We're ready for a better future together. It's time we put this diner back into the hands of those who actually keep it alive. With hesitant resolve and desire for justice, the officer nodded in agreement. Then let us start this meeting. And let us make it clear. This diner, your voices will be respected. Hope surged through as they formed a circle, their dreams intertwining with new promises. They were more than just employees, they were a community. Behind every face was a story waiting to be told, a dream waiting to be honored. And in that openness, Ray saw the dawn of a new era. As they began to talk, to share their visions for the diner, laughter rippled through the air, wiping away the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. Each voice mattered now. And finally, as laughter, dreams, and shared ideas flowed, Ray realized they weren't just fighting against something. They were fighting for something greater: community, respect, and a future that honored them all. But remember, this is not the end. It's only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this message of unity. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful conclusion. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.